The Broncos will be starting training camp, man, in just over 2 weeks from now. What's popping, people? It's your boy Mark here with Marky Sports. Hope you guys had a wonderful 4th of July. This is the time of the year where not only is it slow in the NFL in terms of news, but this is when I think George Payton and Sean Payton are going to get with the agents. They're going to get together. They're going to talk about some of the current players on the roster that are seeking extensions. We know that there's a lot of them on this team. And I think this is when you're going to start to see some things rolling, right? Including first-round pick Jahdae Barron and RJ Harvey, the second-round pick. Those are really weird, but we can get into those at a separate time once we get a little bit more information. But I don't foresee those being an issue getting done. But when we're talking about some of the priority extensions, right, we're talking about Zack Allen, we're talking about John Franklin-Myers, Cortland Sutton, and Nik Bonitto. And this is not necessarily in this particular order of how I would prioritize it. But what I will say is maybe somebody on this list is getting really, really overlooked, and maybe they should be a little bit higher on the priority list, right? And that's when we're going to talk about the Zack Allen versus the John Franklin-Myers debate. I will say they were talking about this earlier on the radio on 104.3 The Fan on the drive with Zach By and Philip Lindsay. And they were talking about, they made some really interesting points, right? I think as a fan base here in Broncos country, we're thinking, man, maybe Zack Allen is a much bigger priority than John Franklin-Myers. Everybody in Broncos country, at least a very, very big majority, wants to see Zack Allen get an extension. Not many people really care about John Franklin-Myers getting an extension, or they're kind of expected that he's going to walk, and they seem to be fine with it. And I want to break down a little bit of stats over the last couple of years. So firstly, one thing that I found to be very interesting with John Franklin-Myers is that he's unbelievably underrated, right? Even on the stat sheet. One thing of note, more than anything, is in the 6 years that he's been in the league, which is just as long as Zack Allen has been in the league, he has missed he's missed just one game due to injury. So a very, very durable player, right? And over the course of his career, John Franklin-Myers has averaged about almost 5 sacks per season, 4.8 to be exact. And he's averaged 33 and a half quarterback pressures in those six seasons. In the same 6 seasons of playing, Zack Allen has averaged 5.1 sacks, so about the same in terms of the overall sack numbers, and actually 18.8 hurries or quarterback pressures. Now, obviously, John Franklin-Myers did play a little bit more than Zack Allen did early in his career, right? That is something that is got to be said. He had played, a few more snaps in some of the early seasons, but really not by much. To be honest with you, it kind of balanced out. But then later on, over the last couple seasons, Zack Allen's really played a whole bunch of football. So when you look at the last 3 years, when Zack Allen has gotten significant playing time, he has averaged just over 8 sacks. So 8.3 sacks a season. It's unbelievable production when you're talking about, somebody that plays the 5 tech or 3 tech or really all along the defensive line like Zack Allen does. John Franklin-Myers in his last season with the Broncos played, same position, but on the opposite side. And over the last 3 seasons, JFM has averaged 6 sacks, which is still really good production, 34 and a half quarterback pressures, but Zack Allen's averaged 29 quarterback pressures. So he's actually been, not just throughout his career, but over the last 3 seasons when both teams have been both guys have been very productive and they've been full-time players, JFM has been the guy pressuring the quarterback more often than Zack Allen. Now, there's a lot of things that can go into that, right? How many double teams is Zack Allen taking on versus John Franklin-Myers, et cetera, right? And obviously, Zack Allen is I think, a little bit more stout when it comes to his run defense, but I wouldn't say by a whole bunch. In fact, PFF will say that John Franklin-Myers is better against the run than Zack Allen, but Zack Allen really gets like zero love when it comes to PFF. That's kind of been a thing. But anyways, I think both of these guys are staples to this offense. They are to this defense. Sorry, they're obviously some of the biggest reasons why this defensive unit was very dominant last year, and I believe is going to be even more dominant in 2025. Very, very solid starters overall, great players, and yes, we've got some intriguing depth pieces behind him, right? We know what Malcolm Roach can do. Ioma Owuzurike, is he going to take another step? The drafting of Savion Jones this year was huge. But it bears the question, man. Do you want to keep a strength? And do you want to look at maybe prioritizing both of these guys and seeing if you can get a deal done? I think it's easier to get John Franklin-Myers' deal done over Zack Allen's, because Zack Allen's going to be asking for quite a bit more money, just per the reports. and really, in my opinion. And you can always franchise tag him next year if you need to. Doing them both at the exact same time causes a little bit of an issue because, yes, it'll save you some money this year. But what it will also do is down the road in 2 or 3 years, depending on how long the extensions are, they're both going to be having really high cap figures, and they could put a little bit of stress in terms of the cap situation, or one of them is going to end up being expendable. If you do John Franklin-Myers now, then you wait until next offseason to do Zack Allen. That could give you a little bit more flexibility at a later date. You also got to see what Savion Jones does. But, I don't know, man, maybe a 2-year deal for John Franklin-Myers at maybe 17 or 18 million per year. I think that would definitely get the job done, and then that would allow for you a little bit more time to get the Zack Allen deal worked with. But either way, I think both of these guys should be the priority over the next two guys in terms of Courtland Sutton and Nik Bonitto. Now, going back to talking about the first two guys, right? I obviously hyped up John Franklin-Myers, and I talked about how from a statistical standpoint, you can make the argument that he could be better when you look at the stats. In my opinion, he's definitely not. I think Zack Allen is one of the best players in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 defensive lineman, no doubt about it. He was ranked number 90 on the top 100 players today. I think it's just a travesty how low he is. He's so good. He's so dominant. He's got such an ability to wreck games, and a lot of what he does doesn't show up on the stat sheet. So I'm all about paying somebody like Zack Allen a lot. He plays a whole bunch of snaps. He's not even 28 years old yet. So yeah, I'm all about giving him the massive pay that Eddie wants. And I don't want to, kind of take that away from him. Another thing is he's obviously extremely well loved and well respected in the locker room just by how hard he works, how he's able to get his body right. And I mean, John Franklin-Myers seems like somebody that's really liked by his teammates, but it is worth noting that, in the first 6 years of his NFL career, or 7 years, I guess you can say, because he missed 2019, he has played for 3 different teams. That is something of note. Why is that? He's always been productive, but teams are still always looking to kind of trade him or move on from him. That's got to say something about him. But either way, I like both of these dudes. I think they should absolutely be locks to get extended. Now, when you're talking about Sutton, I get it. I feel like the Broncos almost put themselves in this position where they have to give him an extension because of what they had promised him per reports last year after he did he took a little bit of a pay bump with incentives, didn't really get any more guaranteed, but got some incentives that, to his credit, he ultimately got. They said, if you go out there and you perform and you have a repeat performance, we'll reward you next offseason. I don't like that they kind of back themselves up into a corner there, because now they almost have to do right by the player in terms of building out this culture and keeping on with this mantra of the Denver Broncos with this new ownership group, man. They will pay their guys. They will reward their guys for performing, right? You go out there and you sign Zack Allen and JFM to extensions, and you don't Sutton, that's going to be a little bit of a blemish. But if they didn't say that, which I really wish that they didn't, there is no reason why you should extend Courtland Sutton. When you look at it from a number standpoint, he's going to earn $20 million this year. He's somebody that I think is absolutely not being overpaid, and he's definitely not being underpaid. I think his value in terms of where he ranks in the league, in terms of his production overall, is right in line with what he is getting paid this upcoming season for 2025. Because what you're doing now is, if you're going to look at an extension and you're going to guarantee more money for him this year, because of the $20.2 million that he would get, 13.2 of that is guaranteed. So if he ends up making the team and plays in a lot of the games, he's going to get that 20.2. There's also a restructure, so he's going to get a big majority of that money. But now what you're going to do is you're probably going to give him more guaranteed money this year, and then you're going to give him some guarantees going into 2026, which could end up being a really good value for the Broncos, right? Especially if none of these other wide receivers really, develop the way that we think. But if Devon Vele balls out, if Pat Bryant, really shows that he's going to be a player in this league, if Marvin Mims takes another step, Troy Franklin, all these young guys that end up playing really, really well, they could push Courtland Sutton out, or they could be like, hey, why not go cheaper and younger at wide receiver and spend the money elsewhere? Well, if you make the extension, you're kind of hamstringing yourself in next offseason. Whereas if they don't end up developing, you can always come back to Sutton and offer him something, midway in the season, or next year. You can even franchise tag him if you don't use it on Zack Allen. You've got a little bit more options with players like that, but he is 30 years old. do you want to give him a lot of guaranteed money going into his 30s? As a guy that for the last couple of seasons has been very healthy and durable, but he has had his injuries and his durability concerns at times throughout his career. So that's going to be something that I think is going to be a question. But I'm always of the mindset of build the culture, make it so that guys feel very confident that they want to come here to Denver because they know if they perform, they're going to get paid. That's what made us such a special franchise in the Pat Bowlen days. I really want that to continue. So I'm all for it. I do expect for an extension of some sort to happen with Courtland Sutton, but I would really like to see it be one more year on top of this year of an extension. No more. I don't want to see a 2 or 3 year deal at this point. I just don't think it really makes a lot of sense for the team, but we'll see what ends up happening there. And then Nik Bonitto, man, here's the tricky one because it's still very early. Nik Bonitto does have 2 years left on his deal. He has this year and next year before he's an unrestricted free agent, I believe. Let me double check that actually, because he was not a first round pick. But there is the franchise tag option with him, and if you make the extension now, it could prove to be a very good value. But it could also, prove to kind of hamstring you. He's a free agent as well in 2026. So if you make the deal now a little early, you could get him at a really good rate, and he could be an elite pass rusher. That's somebody that is going to be a staple for your team. He's still young. He's still, I think, ascending and getting better. So you can get him at a good price. If you wait until next year, not only do you risk potentially losing him, but you risk paying a lot more money for him, right? Here's the caveat with Nik Bonitto. I think he's a game wrecker. I think he's one of the best pure pass rushers in the NFL, and I do think he's on an upward trajectory. But there is definite concern, at least among the front office, about his ability to play against the run. Is he just a pass rush specialist and that's it? If that's how the team views him, doesn't really matter what my opinion is. If that's how the team views him, paying him $25 to $30 million a year is going to be tough. Because you got somebody that, I think he played 55% of the snaps last year, and Sean Payton was saying he felt like that was too much. So this is the kind of defense under Vance Joseph, and probably moving forward with whoever ends up taking over for Vance should he end up leaving. It's a pass rush group by rotation. It's all about the depth, and it's all about keeping guys fresh and getting as many guys as you could possibly get to go after the quarterback. It's the reason why we drafted Jonah Ellis last year. It's the reason why we drafted Q Robinson this year. We get a pass rusher every single year. We got Dondrea Tillman from the UFL. So we've got great depth. We gave the money to Jonathan Cooper. So our depth is an amazing thing for this team, and it could be working against Nik Bonitto, because even though he is very, very good at getting after the quarterback and making plays, he does have his flaws. And are you going to pay that kind of money to somebody who's getting 50% of the snaps, like I just said? So that's something to think about. So, man, I would love to get all 4 of these guys extended and re-signed. And Malcolm Roach I would include into this list too. I think he's an easy person to extend. They talked about his leadership. He's not going to be very expensive. He's a very valuable player to have. You're going to get him at a good rate. He's going to be a great depth piece. He can start in times when you need him to. So I'd like to see him get extended. But of these 4, are you really going to be able to get all 4 of them? If it was up to me, I would say keep investing in your defense, man. You invested in it in the draft. This is your strength. Pay Bonito, pay John Franklin-Myers, pay Zack Allen. You can make it work while you still have Bo Nix in his rookie deal. So those would be my 3 priorities, with Sutton being the 4th. But we're going to have to see, man. I want to know what you guys think below in terms of who do you want to see get paid and why. And let me know some figures of what you believe is a fair extension or a fair new contract for some of these guys, man. Anyways, until the next video, baby, go Broncos. Y'all take it easy, man, and peace out.